Admiral Dongwu stood at the viewing window of the Terran Defense Council headquarters. The massive space station orbited Earth, spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars. He had served in space for 30 years, but today felt different. Today, the silence in the command center made his skin crawl. The communication console beeped. Lieutenant Hyojin looked up from her station with worried eyes. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Vexthari Empire." Every person in the command center stopped what they were doing. The Vexthari Empire. The name that made entire star systems surrender without firing a shot. They had crushed 847 civilizations in 3,000 years. Their ships were the size of moons. Their weapons could eat planets. "Put it on the main screen," Dongwu said. His voice stayed calm, but his hands tightened behind his back. The screen flickered. A massive alien face appeared. It had 4 eyes that glowed red, and skin like black metal. This was Supreme Commander Vorthak, the leader of the most feared military in the galaxy. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. "Humans of the Sol System, I am Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Vexthari Empire. We have watched your small species for some time. You have expanded to 17 star systems. This expansion ends now." Dongwu felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face steady. Around him, the command staff waited in silence. "You have 24 hours, Vorthak continued. Surrender completely, or we will destroy every human in the galaxy. Your ships will be scrapped. Your worlds will be burned. Your people will serve us or die. This is not a negotiation. This is fact." The transmission ended. The screen went black. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Captain Minho was the first to break the silence. He commanded the TDS Resilience, humanity's newest battleship. "Sir, our scouts report massive fleet movement at the edge of human space. The numbers they're impossible." "How many ships?" Dongwu asked. Minho swallowed hard. "Over 50,000 warships, sir. Each one is at least 5 kilometers long. Some are the size of small moons. Our entire fleet has maybe 3,000 ships." Dr. Yuna stepped forward. She was Earth's top expert on alien species. She had studied the Vexthari for years, hoping this day would never come. "Admiral, I need to tell you about them. The Vexthari don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners who resist. In 3,000 years, not one species has ever made them change their mind." She pulled up holographic images of Vexthari ships. They looked like giant metal insects with wings that could cut through space itself. They see other species as bugs, pests to be removed. Their military doctrine is simple. Overwhelming force applied with perfect coordination. They've never lost a battle. Commander Taejin leaned against the tactical table. He led Special Operations, humanity's most elite soldiers. "What about their weaknesses? Everyone has weaknesses." "That's the problem," Dr. Yuna said. "They've been so successful for so long that they've never had to adapt. They use the same strategies over and over because they always work. They're predictable, but they're predictable because their way always wins." "What about their technology?" asked Engineer Sujin. She was young but brilliant, one of the designers of humanity's newest ships. "Centuries ahead of us," Dr. Yuna replied. "Their ships can phase through solid matter. They can appear anywhere instantly. Their weapons consume energy from the targets they hit, getting stronger with each shot. They have shields that bend reality itself." The room fell silent again. The numbers were impossible. The technology gap was enormous. Humanity had been in space for less than 400 years. The Vexthari had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Captain Ji-hoon spoke up. He was quiet most of the time, but when he talked, people listened. "Sir, what if we evacuate? Load everyone onto ships and run." "Run? Where?" Minho asked. "They control most of the galaxy. They'll hunt us down eventually." "We could surrender," suggested Lieutenant Bo Young. "Maybe they'll let some of us live as slaves." Dr. Yuna shook her head. "The Vexthari don't keep human slaves. We're too unpredictable. For them, they prefer species that follow orders without question. Admiral Dongwu had been quiet through all of this. He walked to the center of the room and looked at each person. These were the best minds humanity had. If they couldn't find a solution, no one could. They expect us to be afraid, he said slowly. They expect us to either run or beg. They've seen this thousands of times before. Sir, Captain Minho said, with respect, maybe we should be afraid. The numbers don't lie. This is hopeless. Dongwu smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it wasn't hopeless either. Minho, in your experience, when has humanity ever done what other species expected us to do? The captain thought about it. Never, sir. We're too stubborn. Too unpredictable, added Dr. Yuna. Too crazy, Commander Taejin said with a grin. Exactly. Dongwu turned to the main screen, which now showed a map of human space. 17 star systems, billions of people, all counting on the decisions made in this room. The Vexithari have never lost because they've never faced anything like us. Every other species they've conquered was logical, predictable. They either fought traditionally and lost, or they surrendered. He paused, thinking, what if we don't do either? What if we do something they've never seen before? Like what, sir? Asked Engineer Sujin. I'm not sure yet. But I know one thing. We're not surrendering, and we're not running. We're going to fight, but not the way they expect. Commander Taejin straightened up. What do you need from Special Operations, sir? I need you to think about everything you know about unconventional warfare, everything humanity has ever done that made no sense but worked anyway. Dr. Yuna looked puzzled. Admiral, I don't understand. How can we fight an enemy that outguns us 50-1? Dongwu walked back to the viewing window. Earth turned slowly. Below, blue and green and beautiful. Billions of people down there had no idea what was coming. They were going about their daily lives, working, loving, dreaming of the future. Dr. Yuna, you said the Vexithari are predictable because their way always works. But what happens when they face something that doesn't follow their rules? I don't know. They've never faced that situation. Neither have we, Dongwu admitted. But we're about to create that situation. He turned back to his staff. I want everyone to think about what makes humans different. Not our technology, that's inferior. Not our numbers, they're pathetic. What makes us human? Captain Minho spoke first. We adapt. When something doesn't work, we try something else. We improvise, added Commander Taejin. We make plans, but we change them when we need to. We're stubborn, said Captain Ji-hoon. We don't give up, even when we should. We're unpredictable, Dr. Yuna said thoughtfully. Even to ourselves sometimes. Dongwu nodded. All of that. And one more thing. We're at our best when things are impossible. The worse the odds, the more creative we become. He walked to his, command chair and sat down. Ladies and gentlemen, we have less than 24 hours to do something that has never been done in the history of the galaxy. We're going to find a way to beat the Vexithari Empire. The room was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. Not the silence of despair, but the silence of people thinking hard about an impossible problem. Engineer Sujin raised her hand. Sir, what if the solution isn't military? What if we need to think completely differently? What do you mean? Well, she said slowly, the Vexithari expect either surrender or traditional warfare. What if we give them something else entirely? Something so unexpected that their whole system breaks down. Admiral Dongwu leaned forward. Go on. I'm not sure yet, sir. But maybe the answer isn't about beating them in battle. Maybe it's about becoming something they can't understand or predict. Dongwu smiled again. This time, it was a real smile. Sujin, I think you might be onto something. Everyone, I want new ideas, I want wild theories, I want solutions that sound crazy. He stood up and looked at each of them. The Vexithari think they know what humans are. They think we're just another primitive species that will fold under pressure. Let's show them what humans really are. The countdown had begun. 24 hours to save humanity. 24 hours to do the impossible. Admiral Dong Wu had a feeling it was going to be the most important day in human history. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Eater. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of 50,000 Vexithari warships. The largest fleet ever assembled by the Empire gathered to crush one small species that had dared to ignore their ultimatum. "Commander," his tactical officer reported, "all fleets are in position. The humans have made no attempt to surrender. No evacuation ships have been detected leaving their territory." Vorthak's 4 red eyes glowed brighter. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had seen every possible response to Vexithari ultimatums. Some species begged, some tried to negotiate, some gathered their fleets for hopeless last stands. But the humans were doing something he had never seen before. Nothing. "What are their ships doing?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir. They appear to be scattered. No defensive formations, no concentrated fleets. It's like they're not even preparing for battle." This confused Vorthak. Every military doctrine in the galaxy said that when facing a superior force, you either concentrated your strength for maximum impact or spread out to make yourself harder to target. The humans seem to be doing neither. "Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear," suggested his second-in-command. "Small species often freeze when faced with inevitable death." But something felt wrong to Vorthak. He had conquered 847 species. He knew what fear looked like. This wasn't fear. This was something else. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "First wave, advance to human border systems." Across space, the Vexithari fleet began to move. Ships that could destroy planets accelerated toward human space. Their captains were confident, experienced, and utterly unprepared for what they were about to encounter. Captain Boram sat in the command chair of her modified cargo ship, the Lucky Strike. 6 hours ago, she had been a simple freight hauler. Now she was part of something she didn't fully understand but could feel in her bones. The quantum resonance network hummed in her mind. Not voices or thoughts from other people, but something deeper. Instincts, knowledge, the collective unconscious of humanity itself, focused on survival. "Captain," her navigator said, "Vexithari ships are entering the Kepler system." "Orders?" Boram closed her eyes. Through the network, she could feel the positions of every human ship in the galaxy. She could sense the movement of the alien fleet, like a storm approaching, and somehow, impossibly, she knew exactly what to do. "Take us to coordinates 127.4 by 89.7. Prepare to engage." "Ma'am, those coordinates are empty space. They won't be empty when we get there." The Lucky Strike and hundreds of other civilian ships began moving toward positions that made no tactical sense. They weren't forming defensive lines or preparing ambushes. They were spreading out in patterns that looked random, but felt right, to every human who saw them. Admiral Kyung-ho watched the display from his command ship and felt his military training fighting with his quantum-enhanced instincts. Everything his officers were doing violated basic tactical doctrine. It should have been a disaster, but it felt perfect. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "civilian ships are taking positions throughout the combat zone. They're not following any formation I recognize." "That's because it's not a formation," Kyung-ho realized. "It's an organism. We're not deploying ships. We're growing into the space around us." The first Vexithari ships entered human territory, expecting to find defensive positions or fleeing civilians. Instead, they found something unprecedented: humans everywhere, but nowhere they expected them to be. Commander So Young led a squadron of fighter craft that should have been destroyed in the first minute of combat. Her ships were small and lightly armed compared to Vexithari interceptors. But as the alien fighters approached, something extraordinary happened. The human pilots began moving in perfect harmony, not because they had trained together, but because they were all drawing from the same deep well of instinct. When one pilot rolled left to avoid enemy fire, 50 others rolled left at exactly the right moment. When one pilot found a weakness in Vexithari shields, every other pilot instantly knew how to exploit it. "How are they doing that?" demanded the Vexithari squadron leader. His pilots were trained and experienced, but they couldn't predict what the humans would do next because the humans themselves didn't know until they did it. Dr. Jin A monitored the battle from Research Station Omega. Her instruments were picking up readings that shouldn't have been possible. Admiral Dongwu, you need to see this. The quantum fields around human ships they're synchronized. Every ship, every station, every settlement, they're all pulsing in the same rhythm. What does that mean? I think it means we're not fighting as separate units anymore. We're fighting as a single organism with billions of parts. The Vexthari are trying to battle individual ships, but every ship they attack is connected to every other ship. Captain Wu Jin demonstrated this perfectly. His destroyer, the Relentless, was outnumbered 10-1 by Vexithari cruisers. By every rule of warfare, he should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, he began executing maneuvers that seemed to predict where the enemy shots would be. He wasn't psychic. He was simply connected to every other human who had ever dodged anything in their life. The collective experience of billions of people flowed through the network, giving him reflexes that no single mind could possess. Impossible, muttered the Vexithari fleet commander as he watched human ships dancing between his carefully aimed shots. They're moving before we fire. But the humans weren't seeing the future. They were simply so connected to each other that, when one ship sensed danger, every other ship knew to move. It was like fighting an enemy with billions of eyes and billions of reflexes. The Vexthari tactical computers began registering errors. Their prediction algorithms, perfected over thousands of battles, couldn't calculate what the humans would do next. Every time they thought they had found a pattern, the humans would change. Supreme Commander Vorthak watched his tactical displays with growing confusion. His fleets were taking losses, not heavy losses, but any losses against such a primitive enemy were unacceptable. Report, he demanded. Sir, the humans they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They have no central command structure that we can identify, but they're coordinated perfectly. They're not following any tactical doctrine in our databases. Then adapt our tactics. We're trying, sir, but every time we change our approach, they change theirs instantly. It's like they know what we're going to do before we do it. This was exactly what was happening. The quantum resonance network wasn't just connecting humans to each other. It was allowing them to feel the intentions of their enemies. Not telepathy, but something deeper. The ability to sense patterns and respond to them faster than conscious thought. Engineer Da Yun, working from a converted asteroid mining station, made a discovery that changed everything. Admiral, I figured out what's happening to their sensors. The quantum field we're generating is creating interference with their targeting systems. Explain. Their computers can't lock onto us because we're existing in multiple probability states at once. To their sensors, every human ship appears to be in several places at the same time. They can't hit us because they can't figure out where we actually are. Captain Junho proved this theory when his light cruiser seemed to disappear from Vexithari sensors, only to reappear behind their battle line. He hadn't used any advanced technology. He had simply moved in a way that the alien computers couldn't process. Their entire fleet is built around predictable tactics, he reported to Admiral Dongwu. But we're not being predictable. We're being human. The battle was spreading across multiple star systems now. Vexithari ships that should have swept through human space in hours were instead finding themselves confused, outmaneuvered, and increasingly frustrated. Every attack they launched was countered by responses that made no logical sense but worked perfectly. Commander Yunji led an assault on a Vexthari dreadnought with nothing but converted cargo ships and mining barges. It should have been suicide. Instead, the civilian ships moved like a school of fish, each one knowing exactly where the others would be. The dreadnought's massive guns couldn't track targets that moved with such fluid coordination. Sir, reported the Vexithari gunner, I can't get a targeting solution. They're moving in patterns that our computers say are impossible. Then fire manually. But manual targeting was even worse. The human ship seemed to know when someone was aiming at them. They would shift position just enough to make the shot miss, then close in for attacks on the dreadnought's weak points. Back on the World Eater, Supreme Commander Vorthak was facing a situation he had never encountered in 3,000 years of conquest. His fleet was losing, not losing badly, not being destroyed, but losing nonetheless. The humans were taking his ships apart piece by piece, using tactics that shouldn't have worked against any competent enemy. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 12 of our battle groups. They say they're everywhere at once." Vorthak's 4 eyes blazed with anger. "Vex Athari ships do not surrender." "Sir, perhaps we should deploy the reality-warping dreadnoughts, if we can reshape the battlefield itself." Vorthak considered this. Across human space, something strange was happening. Ships that should have been running from the Vexthari threat were instead moving toward secret coordinates. Space stations that should have been evacuating were powering up systems that had never been used before. And in the deepest parts of human territory, machines that had been sleeping for years began to wake up. Captain Ji-hoon stood in front of a massive metal door buried 3 kilometers under the surface of Luna. The sign on the door read, "Quantum Resonance Network, Project Wildcard, authorized personnel only." He had the highest security clearance in the human military, but even he had only learned about this place 6 hours ago. Admiral Dongwu's voice came through his communicator. "Ji-hoon, are you in position?" "Yes, sir. But I have to ask, what exactly is this place? Something we hoped we would never need to use. Dr. Chan-woo will explain when you get inside." The door opened with a sound like thunder. Inside was a chamber so large that Ji-hoon couldn't see the walls. The floor was covered with millions of tiny lights, all pulsing in perfect rhythm. In the center stood a single man, Dr. Chan-woo, humanity's leading expert in quantum physics. "Captain Ji-hoon," Dr. Chan-woo said without turning around, "welcome to humanity's biggest secret. Please come closer. I need to show you something remarkable." Ji-hoon walked across the glowing floor. Each step made the lights pulse brighter. "Doctor, what is this place?" "This is the heart of the quantum resonance network. Every human settlement, every ship, every space station, they're all connected to this chamber. We can link every human mind in the galaxy into a single network." Ji-hoon stopped walking. "Link human minds? That sounds like science fiction? Like magic?" Dr. Chan-woo finally turned around. He was smiling, but his eyes were tired. "Captain, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but we've been testing it for 10 years. He gestured to the lights on the floor. "Human consciousness operates on quantum principles. Our brains don't just process information, they exist in multiple probability states at once. When humans make decisions, we're actually collapsing quantum possibilities into reality." "I don't understand, sir." Dr. Chan-woo laughed. "Most people don't. Here, let me show you something simpler." He pulled out a device that looked like a simple metal ball. "This is a quantum randomizer. It generates completely random numbers. Watch." He pressed a button. Numbers appeared on a small screen. 7, 23, 41, 15, 3. "Now," he said, "I want you to think of a number between 1 and 50. Don't tell me what it is. Just concentrate on it." Ji-hoon thought of the number 17. Dr. Chan-woo pressed the button again. The screen showed 17. "Lucky guess?" Ji-hoon asked. "Try again." Different number. Ji-hoon thought of 39. The device showed 39. One more time. This time Ji-hoon thought of 2. The device showed 2. "How is that possible?" Dr. Chan-woo put the device away. "Human consciousness affects quantum probability. Most species in the galaxy follow strict logical patterns. They're predictable because their minds work like computers. But humans? We're different. Our thoughts actually bend probability." Ji-hoon felt dizzy. "You're saying we can affect reality just by thinking?" "In small ways, yes. But imagine if we could connect every human mind in the galaxy. Imagine billions of people all focused on the same goal, all bending probability in the same direction." The implications hit Ji-hoon like a physical blow. The Vexthari rely on predictable outcomes. Their strategies work because they can calculate exactly what will happen, but they've never faced an enemy that could change the fundamental rules of probability. Meanwhile, on the mining station Prosperity 7, Engineer Su Jin was discovering something equally impossible. She had been sent to activate dormant systems that most people didn't know existed. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about human technology. Command. This is Su Jin on Prosperity. 7. I need to speak with Admiral Dongwu immediately. His voice came through clearly. What have you found, Engineer? Sir, these aren't just communication systems. These are, I don't know what to call them. Reality anchors? The readings I'm getting suggest they can stabilize local space-time. Explain that in simple terms, please. Su Jin looked at the readings. Again. They were impossible, but they were real. Sir, I think these devices can prevent the Vexthari from using their phasing technology. If they can't phase through matter, their tactical advantage disappears. In another part of the galaxy, Captain Boram was having her own revelation. She commanded a small freight convoy that transported supplies between human colonies. Nothing special, nothing military. But today she had received orders to report to coordinates that didn't appear on any star map. When she arrived, she found hundreds of other civilian ships waiting. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger transports. But as she watched, panels opened on their hulls to reveal weapons that definitely weren't civilian. This is Captain Wu Jin of the HSS Determiner, came a voice over the communication channel. All civilian captains, please listen carefully. You've been chosen for a special mission. Chosen for what? Boram asked. To prove that humans don't fight the way other species expect. Your ships have been modified with experimental technology. You're not warships, but you're something the Vexthari have never seen before. Back on Luna, Dr. Chan Wu was explaining the full scope of the quantum resonance network to Captain Ji-hoon. Every human settlement has a node, he said, pointing to a massive holographic display that showed all of human space. When we activate the network, every human in the galaxy will be connected on a quantum level. Not a hive mind. Everyone keeps their individual thoughts and personality, but their subconscious minds will be linked. What does that mean in practical terms? It means that when one human has a good idea, every other human will subconsciously know it. When one pilot makes a successful maneuver, every other pilot will instinctively know how to do the same thing. We become a species that learns and adapts in real time. Ji-hoon stared at the display. The Vexthari won't be fighting individual humans anymore. They'll be fighting humanity itself. Exactly. And humanity has one advantage that no other species in the galaxy possesses. We get better under pressure. The more desperate the situation, the more creative we become. On Earth, Admiral Dongwu was coordinating with military commanders across human space, but he was also talking to people who had never been in battle. Artists, writers, musicians, even children. Sir, asked Commander Kyung-ho, why are we including civilians in a military operation? Dongwu looked at the list of people being connected to the network. Teachers, farmers, engineers, dreamers. Because the Vexthari understand military thinking. They've defeated thousands of military commanders, but they've never faced human creativity. He pulled up profiles of some of the people joining the network. This woman, Mi Young, is a cargo ship captain. She's never fired a shot in anger, but she once navigated through an asteroid field that computers said was impossible to cross. This man, Hyun-woo, is a composer. He creates music by finding no patterns that shouldn't exist. This child, so young, is 8 years old and sees solutions to problems that adults can't even recognize. You want to put the fate of humanity in the hands of civilians? No, Dongwu said. I want to put it in the hands of humans. All of us, together. Across human space, the network was coming online. People reported strange sensations, a feeling of connection, of being part of something larger. Scientists monitoring the quantum fields detected patterns they had never seen before. Reality itself seemed to be shifting around human settlements. Dr. Yuna, monitoring from the command center, watched the readings with amazement. Admiral, the quantum coherence levels are off the charts. It's like human consciousness is creating a field effect that extends through space itself. Lieutenant Haye Jin looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving reports from all over human territory. People are different, more focused, more connected. Different how? They're thinking faster, solving problems they couldn't solve before. It's like the entire human species just got smarter. Admiral Dongwu nodded. This was what they had hoped for. But seeing it actually work was still overwhelming. Dr. Chan Wu, are we ready to activate the full network? Dr. Chan Wu's voice came through the communicator from Luna. All nodes are online. Quantum coherence is stable. We're ready, Admiral. Dongwu looked at the countdown timer. 18 hours until the Vexthari deadline. Across human space, 50,000 alien warships were moving into position, confident in their superiority. They expected to face a species that would either surrender or fight in predictable ways. They had no idea what was coming. Dr. Chan Wu, activate the quantum resonance network. Full power. The lights in the command center flickered. Every human in the galaxy felt a moment of vertigo, as if the universe had shifted slightly. Then came a sensation that was impossible to describe. The feeling of being connected to billions of other minds while remaining completely individual. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species was thinking as one while remaining utterly human. And in that moment, humanity began to evolve into something the galaxy had never seen before. The space around the Vexthari fleet began to change. Reality twisted as massive dreadnoughts activated their most feared weapons. Reality warpers that could reshape the fundamental laws of physics. Space itself became fluid, time moved in strange directions, and the basic rules that governed matter and energy became suggestions rather than laws. Supreme Commander Vorthok watched from his flagship as 3 of his largest reality-warping dreadnoughts prepared to end the human resistance. These weapons had never failed. They couldn't fail. When reality itself became your weapon, there was no possible defense. Target the largest concentration of human ships, he ordered. Reshape local space-time to crush them. The first reality warper fired. A wave of distorted space-time rolled toward a cluster of human vessels near the planet New Sol. The wave should have compressed the ships into nothingness, folding them out of existence. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships moved before the wave reached them, not away from it. That would have been logical. They moved to exactly the positions where space-time would be most stable after the wave passed. It was as if they knew where reality would reshape itself before it happened. How did they know where to go? Demanded the Vexthari tactical officer. Engineer Da-Un, monitoring from her asteroid station, felt the answer through the quantum resonance network. They're bending probability around the reality warpers, she reported to Admiral Dongwu. The quantum field we're generating is interfering with their space-time manipulation. In simple terms, please. Their weapons change reality, but we're changing the probability of what reality they'll create. They can't hit us because we're making it more likely that they'll miss. This was beyond anything the Vexthari had ever encountered. Their reality, warpers were based on precise calculations of how space-time would respond to their manipulations, but the humans were somehow making those calculations wrong. Captain Wu Jin demonstrated this as his squadron approached the second reality warping dreadnought. The massive ship fired its main weapon, trying to create a gravity well that would pull the human ships apart. Instead, the gravity well appeared exactly where the humans wanted it, between them and the Vexthari escorts, giving the human ships a gravity boost that accelerated them toward their target. Admiral Dongwu, reported Dr. Chan Wu from Luna, the network is evolving. Humans across the galaxy are starting to think in ways that don't follow normal logic. They're using intuition that operates on quantum levels. What he meant was that humanity was learning to think like the universe itself, in probabilities rather than certainties, in possibilities rather than fixed outcomes. Every human connected to the network was developing an instinct for quantum, mechanics that no textbook could teach. Commander So Young proved this when her fighter squadron encountered the third reality warper. The massive ship tried to slow time around the human fighters, making them sitting targets for its escort vessels. But the fighters began moving in patterns that seemed to exist outside normal time flow. "Ma'am," her wing leader called out. "How are we moving so fast? The time distortion should be slowing us down." So Young didn't know the technical answer, but she felt the truth through the network. "We're not fighting the time distortion. We're finding the paths through it where time moves normally. The Vexthari escorts couldn't track targets that were somehow immune to their reality-warping weapons. Their shots missed by impossible margins, while the human fighters struck with precision that shouldn't have been possible in distorted space-time. Supreme Commander Vorthak felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 millennia. Fear. Not fear of death, which was acceptable for a warrior. Fear of the unknown, which was far worse. Status report, he demanded. Sir, all 3 reality warpers have been destroyed. The humans seem to be immune to space-time manipulation. Our conventional weapons can't lock onto them. Our tactical computers can't predict their movements. And... The officer paused. And what? Sir, they're getting better. Every successful attack they make seems to teach them how to make the next attack more effective. It's like they're learning from each other instantaneously. This was exactly what was happening. Through the quantum resonance network, every successful human action became part of the collective knowledge. When one pilot found a way to penetrate Vexithari's shields, every other pilot instantly knew the technique. When one captain discovered a weakness in alien armor, every other captain could exploit it. Admiral Kyung-ho experienced this firsthand as his fleet engaged the main Vexithari battle line. His ships were outnumbered 5-1, but they moved, with a coordination that made them seem like a single organism with thousands of parts. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the enemy is trying to adapt to our movements, but every time they change tactics, we change ours faster. It's like we can feel what they're going to do. This wasn't telepathy or precognition. It was pattern recognition elevated to an art form. The collective human consciousness was processing millions of data points every second, finding patterns in Vexthari behavior that no individual mind could detect. Dr. Shung Min, monitoring from the research vessel Discovery, made a breakthrough that explained everything. Admiral, I understand what's happening. We're creating probability cascades. Explain. Every time we succeed at something, it makes our next success more likely. Every time the Vexthari fail, their next failure becomes more probable. We're not just fighting them, we're making it more and more likely that we'll win. This was the power of human consciousness operating on quantum levels. Other species thought in terms of cause and effect, action and reaction. But humans, connected through the network, were thinking in terms of possibility and probability. They were literally making their own success more likely with each small victory. Captain Boram saw this in action as her converted cargo ship faced off against a Vexthari battlecruiser. Her ship was armed with mining lasers and cargo manipulators, tools that should have been useless against military-grade armor. But every shot she fired seemed to hit exactly the right spot at exactly the right angle to cause maximum damage. Ma'am, her gunner called out, I don't understand. These weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate their armor. They can't, Boram agreed. But we're not just penetrating their armor. We're finding the tiny flaws, the microscopic weaknesses, the 1 in a million chances that our shots will hit something vital. And because billions of humans were all unconsciously focused on finding those 1 in a million chances, they became 1 in 1 chances. Probability itself was bending around human determination. The effect was cascading through the entire battle. Vexthari ships that had never known defeat were being destroyed by enemies that shouldn't have posed any threat. Weapons that had conquered galaxies were missing targets that should have been impossible to miss. Tactics that had worked for 3,000 years were failing against opponents who seemed to rewrite the rules of warfare with every engagement. Supreme Commander Vorthak made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. Signal the fleet. Full withdrawal to Rally Point 7. Sir? His officers stared at him in shock. The Vexthari had never retreated from a battle. Ever. Do it now, Vorthak snapped. We're not fighting a normal enemy. We need to regroup and develop new strategies. But even retreat was becoming impossible. Human ships seemed to anticipate every withdrawal route. Captain Junho's task force appeared exactly where the Vexithari rearguard was trying to form up. Commander Yunji's converted mining barges emerged from hyperspace in perfect position to cut off the main escape route. Sir, the Vexithari fleet coordinator reported. The humans are everywhere we want to go. It's like they know our plans before we make them. In a sense, they did. The quantum resonance network wasn't just connecting human minds, it was allowing them to feel the flow of events, to sense the most probable outcomes and position themselves accordingly. They weren't predicting the future, they were creating it. Engineer Dayun watched her instruments as the quantum field around human space continued to strengthen. Admiral, the coherence patterns are unprecedented. We're not just networked anymore. We're becoming a single quantum entity that exists in multiple states simultaneously. What she meant was that humanity was evolving in real time, becoming something that existed partially outside normal space-time. Each human retained their individuality, but they were all part of a larger pattern that the universe itself seemed to recognize as fundamental. The Vexthuri fleet, built for conventional warfare against predictable enemies, simply couldn't cope with an opponent that was becoming something beyond their understanding. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being outfought by converted civilian vessels. Weapons that had destroyed planetary defenses were being neutralized by mining equipment and cargo manipulators. Admiral Nam Su coordinated the final phase of the assault from his command ship. Around him, tactical displays showed the impossible. The largest military force in galactic history was being systematically destroyed by a species that had been considered primitive just hours earlier. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from Vexthuri ships across the battle zone. They're requesting terms." Supreme Commander Vorthak stood alone on the bridge of the World Eater. Around his flagship, thousands of human vessels waited in perfect formation, not threatening, not preparing to attack, just waiting. It was more terrifying than any battle he had ever fought. "Human fleet," he transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Supreme Commander Vorthak of the Vexthuri Empire. I request terms of surrender." The response came from Admiral Dongwu himself. His voice was calm, without hatred or triumph. "Commander Vorthak, please prepare to receive our delegation. We have much to discuss." An hour later, Vorthak found himself in the strangest negotiation of his career. He sat across from Admiral Dongwu in the conference room of a simple human cruiser. No throne room, no display of power, just a basic military meeting room with coffee and simple chairs. "Don't understand," Vorthak said. His four red eyes stared at the human admiral. "You have won the greatest victory in galactic history. Why aren't you demanding our complete surrender? Why aren't you preparing to conquer our empire?" Dongwu sipped his coffee. "Commander, we never wanted to conquer anyone. We just wanted to survive. You threatened our existence, so we defended ourselves. But you crushed the most powerful military force in the galaxy in less than 24 hours. You could rule everything. Why would we want to rule everything? That sounds like a lot of paperwork." Vorthak stared at him. In 3,000 years, he had never met a species that could destroy their enemies but chose not to. "What do you want from us?" "Peace," Dongwu said simply. "We want you to leave human space alone. We want you to stop conquering other species, and we want to understand why you felt the need to threaten us in the first place." Captain Junho, who was leading the cleanup operations, reported the final numbers to Admiral Dongwu. "Sir, of the 50,000 Vexthuri ships that entered, human space 847 were destroyed, 12,000 surrendered, and the rest retreated. We lost 23 ships and suffered 156 casualties." The numbers were impossible. Humanity had faced the largest invasion fleet in galactic history, and one with losses that barely registered as a rounding error. But more than the military victory, something fundamental had changed about humanity itself. Dr. Haiwan published her preliminary findings about what she called the human factor. "The quantum resonance network didn't just connect our minds," she wrote. "It allowed our species to evolve in real time. We became something new, a collective intelligence that retained individual creativity and adaptability." The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't just won a battle. They had proved that consciousness itself could be a weapon more powerful than any technology. When billions of minds focused on survival and connected through quantum principles, they could literally reshape probability. But the most remarkable discovery came from Dr. Chan Wu on Luna. Admiral, the network is still active, but it's changed. Humans aren't just connected during crisis anymore. The quantum field has stabilized into something permanent. What does that mean? It means humanity has permanently evolved. We're still individuals, but we're also part of a larger quantum entity. Every human now has access to the collective unconscious of our entire species. This was already showing results. Engineers across human space were solving problems they couldn't have tackled before. Artists were creating works that seemed to channel insights from millions of minds. Children were learning at rates that amazed their teachers. Captain Min Jung, who had been working on expanding the quantum resonance network, made an even more startling discovery. Sir, it's not just humans anymore. The quantum field is extending to human colonies, human ships, even human pets. Anything that's been in close contact with humans for extended periods is starting to show signs of quantum enhancement. Humanity wasn't just evolving, they were becoming a force that could elevate other forms of consciousness around them. News of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Species that had lived in terror of the Vexthari Empire suddenly realized that the unstoppable conquerors had been stopped by a race most of them had never heard of. Ambassador Young Sik found his office flooded with requests. Admiral, he reported to Dongwu, we have 347 species requesting alliance agreements. The Zephyrian Confederation wants to know if we'll protect them from Vexthari retaliation. The Crystalline Collective is offering to share their energy matrix technology, and the Aquatic Federation is asking if they can study how we achieved quantum consciousness. Dongwu rubbed his temples. What are we telling them? That we're not interested in becoming galactic peacekeepers, but we're happy to share our knowledge with anyone who wants to use it for peaceful purposes. This offer created an unprecedented situation in galactic politics. For the first time in recorded history, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was actively trying to avoid conquest and expansion. The Vexthari Empire itself was in chaos. Supreme Commander Vorthak had returned to their capital world, with news that their invincible fleet had been destroyed by a species they had considered primitive. The Emperor himself couldn't understand how this had happened. Commander, the Emperor demanded, explain to me how our reality-warping dreadnoughts were destroyed by cargo ships. Vorthak had been asking himself the same question. Your Majesty, the humans fight like a force of nature. They don't follow military doctrine because they don't need to. They simply adapt to whatever we throw at them and become stronger. Are they more technologically advanced than we thought? No, Your Majesty. Their technology is centuries behind ours, but their minds work in ways we can't comprehend. They turn their own consciousness into a weapon more powerful than anything we've ever built. The Emperor was silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, what do they want from us? They want us to stop conquering other species. They want us to leave them alone. And Vorthak paused. They want to understand why we became conquerors in the first place. This last part confused the Vexthari leadership more than anything else. In their experience, victorious species either destroyed their enemies or enslaved them. The idea of trying to understand and reform their opponents was completely alien. Back in human space, the transformation was continuing. Dr. Yuna documented how the quantum resonance network was affecting human society. People are becoming more empathetic, she reported. Crime rates have dropped to nearly zero. Mental illness is declining rapidly. It's as if connecting to the collective human consciousness has made everyone more human. But the most significant change was in human children. Kids who had been connected to the network from birth were showing abilities that seemed almost magical. They could solve complex mathematical problems intuitively, create art that moved people to tears, and understand concepts that should have taken years to learn. 8-year-old So Young, who had been one of the youngest people connected to the network during the crisis, demonstrated this when she casually solved a quantum mechanics problem that had puzzled scientists for decades. How did you know the answer? Dr. Chan Wu asked her. I just felt it, she said with the matter-of-fact tone that only children could use. The numbers wanted to be that way. Adults connected to the network were changing too, but more gradually. They retained their personalities and memories, but gained access to insights and abilities they had never possessed before. It wasn't telepathy or mind reading. It was something deeper. The ability to tap into the collective wisdom and experience of the entire human species. Captain Mi Young demonstrated this when she successfully navigated a previously unmapped nebula using pure intuition. "I've never been here before," she reported, "but I can feel the safe paths. It's like the nebula is telling me where to go." The galactic community was trying to understand what humanity had become. The ethereal collective, a species of energy, beings who had existed for millions of years, sent a delegation to study the phenomenon. "We have observed many forms of consciousness," their representative reported to Ambassador Youngsik. "But we have never seen a species achieve collective, quantum awareness while maintaining individual identity. You have become something new in the universe." "What does that mean for the galaxy?" Youngsik asked. "It means that the age of conquest and domination may be ending. If other species can learn to achieve what humans have achieved, warfare itself may become obsolete." This was humanity's ultimate gift to the galaxy, not military superiority, but proof that consciousness could evolve beyond competition and conflict. The quantum resonance network had shown that intelligence became more powerful when it was shared rather than hoarded. Admiral Dong Wu addressed the Galactic Council 6 months after the Vexithari ultimatum. The Great Assembly Hall was filled with representatives from thousands of species, all wanting to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy," he said. "We just wanted to survive. But in the process of defending ourselves, we learned something important. The universe isn't about the strong conquering the weak. It's about consciousness learning to work together to become something greater than the sum of its parts." He gestured to the holographic display showing human space. "The quantum resonance network has made us more than we were individually, but we're still recognizably human."